We want to illustrate the ability for the user to prepare a change order for an awarded project. Basically, the structure of all the estimates within a project are the base bid estimate, typically separate prices, alternate prices, all prepared by the estimator. But as the project has been awarded, you'll continue to do change order work to pick up all, of course, revisions and changes on the project. Those are tiered between pending change orders with a proceed, maybe a written proceed but no formal change order, and then of course with a final change order for implementation up on top here. So virtually you want to start out with a pending change order. We would come down here to our linked estimate, and from this window we're going to select whether it is base bid, separate prices, alternate prices by the appropriate boxes. But where we want to go right now is to change orders. From change order we want to put in a reference. This would be maybe change notice number 121 would be the next one to be priced, and we'll hit return. Now that we've done that, we've copied all the base bid information into a new project. It is titled that change notice or change order, whatever the project reference is. You'll see that it's showing up now in the pending portion of the tree structure on the left hand side here, and now you're ready to go in and start doing some pricing. The first item you need to do is to go into your takeoff. From the takeoff viewport, now we're going to go in and typically do an estimate. This would be the same as the estimator would work on in a pre-bid situation. And now we're comparing drawings and going into filling the information. So we've got work in maybe copy room 1000, we've got elevation 12 on 123, and now we can come down and start to include the requirements for that particular elevation. Now very simply, we can come over and look at our standard items, and let's say that we've got a wall cabinet, two-door wall cabinet. We can drop and drag that in. We can come over and fill in the quantity looking at the drawing. We can put in a section, and we can update the dimensions from our default settings for the dimensions themselves. We have another viewport where we can look at the takeoff with pricing. It's got our hours unit of install extended, our manufactured unit, and extended for the manufacture portion. And we would continue to do this. We can right click to add a row. We can also down arrow. We can also pull down and select an item, for example, countertop. And we'll fill in 8 linear feet of countertop. And that comes up with your pricing complete with your hours and manufactured costs for that. We can further come across here and select special items. These might be assemblies already dictated on this job as being a special item, and those can be dropped and dragged into the takeoff area for you. We also have the ability to call in materials. Let's say we wanted to bring in some Wilson art. We can drop and drag that over. We can put in a quantity for that material. Now with material, it does not give us the hours of installation. They're not attached as they are in the assembly, so we're asked to put that in at this point in time, and it completes the row for you. If you have an item that is not on the project, not in the library, not in your specials, we can come in here and add a row. We can come in and call it maybe a special counter, a snapshot description of what it is. We're going to go linear, and we're going to put in 8 feet to section 2 on 2, and we'll fill in our manufactured or deliverable size for that item. And you can see that pricing is not completed here for that. This is basically part of the estimating demonstration that you should further review to come up with the pricing and what have you for these items. But that's how you would enter all that information. You can also insert row and delete row within the takeoff itself. If you require a new room, you come up and hit add new location. We also have the ability to copy and merge locations. And one other item we've got here too is under the base bid. Let's say there is a room in the base bid that's going to be modified or deleted. That can be dropped and dragged over here. So in room 105, maybe they've deleted this room. We could come down and use a negative figure to take that out. We can reverse that back again. We can also come in, right click and delete row to make changes to it. And we can continue to add other items as required for that particular item. That's how we develop the takeoff itself. Then we return back to the main screen. We're still in change notice number 121, and now we would come back and do a bid summary. So what we want to do is to add the percentages and the fees onto this estimate to be submitted to the contractor. So Typically, the top line is your manufactured or material cost that comes from your takeoff that we just performed. So that's the value that's been brought forward. You have the ability to add in any item that you want at this point, maybe a shop drawing cost. There are other items that you can use. You can pull down and select. If the item's not there, you can add a new item. Freight factor, we might want to put in freight of $750. And let's say it is a taxable project at 6%. We can add the tax in there. We move on to the installation cost. Here we would carry forward the install cost from the takeoff back in this area in the prior screen. From there, we can then generate an input, maybe foreman's hours. Maybe you want to add 8 hours for the foreman to be put in. We also have the ability to put in the value for fasteners, cup washers, any site requirements for materials, etc. Those can be placed in here and picked up also. Farther down, now we can go to sub-trades. Maybe there's a granite sub-trade that you've got here. And that can be spelled out with name and phone number, etc. And we can place that information in there. Let's say it's $5,000 for that. And then finally, we've got our last area here, which affects the percentages that have been allocated by the contract document typically for being added to all the items that we've got listed above here. So our manufacturer and material cost would be 10%. Installation cost, if self-performed, would be 10%. If it's subcontracted or any other subcontractors, would be put in at 5%, which is typical for most projects. But check the contract documents to see what the requirements are. If you do have certification requirements by the woodworking associations, you can come down here and add in that fee that's required for that. And likewise, if the documents call for bonding, you can add that bond amount in there to return your final amount down below here for that particular change order. And that's all affected under tab F. The base bid is usually taken care of with tabs A through D and summarized on E. But in this case, we jump right into F to be able to complete the format here that's typically required to submit your estimate back for changes. So having completed that, we can then come up and do a report on it. And from here, we would go to our reports, change order. And from that change order, we're going to develop this format, which is basically your scope letter. The information can be input manually, or you can indicate as per attached list, just like your typical scope letters. And as we progress through the screens, you'll find now that you'll get a bid summary. Now all of this is provided to the contractor and submitted to him, and all the values have been brought forward as we've put them on the screens that we saw just earlier to come down to your final number. Now to back up the material number up top here, when we go to the final screen and final page, what you're going to find is an actual copy of the takeoff that you've input with the items from that takeoff. There's room 1000 copy, and we copied in from the base bid of room 1005 with all the information that's put there. So it's that number that's being brought forward to the bid summary. Those number of install hours are brought back to the bid summary. And that's what we see right here. There's your manufactured cost, and there's your install hours. And then we, of course, include foreman and fasteners on top of that, okay, to come down to the final number. So then that is, of course, then printed. We can go to our network printers and we can print that, or we can return and save this as a PDF. Once that is completed, we could come over here and click the export through email, and that can be emailed directly to the person that is in the recipient area of the scope letter heading, and that can be sent off directly to them. So that's basically how we handle the change order work. While we're doing it, it is separated. It is what we call a linked estimate, and it's brought down here and shown under the pending change orders. If, as the job progresses, this particular change notice has been asked to proceed, but maybe not in writing, or maybe in writing but without a change order, we can come here and hit the proceed button. It's going to come up here and it's going to tell you that we're going to move this along and assign maybe a change order number to it, if you have it, or maybe you can just question it at the moment. And once we do that, you'll see now that that's been moved up into the next level here. And now you've actually received your change notice for it. We would then come to the CO. the change order requirement. And from here we're going to put in change order 09, because that's what's been issued by the contractor on their forms, and we're going to put in the value of that change order. And once we do that in return, now that resides up top here under change order number 9 under your approved change orders. If you have the project management module as part of your package, it will be sent there to your schedule of values if you've created one to bring those values forward. But at any time you can refer back here, you can go back and look at all the information that was provided, and of course you can come back and reprint what your requirements are. Now quickly, simply we go back to the base bid, we do need to provide another type of estimate. In this case, it's what we call a time and material estimate. So click linked estimate, we'll come up here and click time and material. When we click that, it's going to remind us that we do have to put in our reference for that. So let's say it's a time slip number 101. Once we've done that, now we have a copied estimate which resides under the main project itself. And from here we're going to go in and do our base bid summary. From the summary we're going to come in and complete this area here with information. So we've got maybe 8 hours of engineering, we've got 12 hours of fabrication, we've got a few hours of overtime, we've got a shop drawing cost that we can fill in, freight factor if necessary, sales tax if that is of course applicable, and then of course we can complete the requirements for the site labor and possibly fasteners if we're required for this. Subtrades and general conditions, the same thing as we used earlier on the change order, and then of course our percentages and fees that are placed down below here. So this one here we would complete. Now if we require to add any information, for example materials, so we're going to go in and buy some material, we can come in here and fill that in with a quantity. The price is done through a lookup through the material database, and that information is completed. So this can be done more on a time and material basis where you're working on a time slip possibly from the project. And when we return back and go to reports, we receive the same reporting method as we did on the prior, and when we go to page 2, there's the complete breakdown for a review by the contractor of all the information that you're looking for. So that's how we complete our change order or time and material pricing for any project once the project has been awarded. So again, typically the upper portion here is done by the estimator in a pre-bid situation, and of course we've just addressed the change orders that can be prepared after the estimate and the award has been made. There is a little different setup doing change orders as opposed to base bid work. Typically we're not using the rates that have been dictated for the labor location, and we have to set up the rates for the carpenters and also the structure as dictated typically by the contract documents. To do so, you must go back to the base bid under project management and project award and come down to the bottom right corner and fill in the rates that you want to use for any change order pricing. Typically these should be different from your base bid pricing as it's non-competitive, and take advantage of that the best you can. So your rates are established here, and the fees and percentages are established over here to be used in your change order pricing. So that is a prerequisite that must be completed. If you do not complete this area, you will get a message window to ask you to go to this location and fill in this information.